No worries. Thanks a lot. So good evening, everyone, and I'm excited to share my story with you this evening. And it's based on, my journey over the last 11 years from building a business from an idea, from my background in the fire brigade, through to what's today a business that employs about 150 people nationally. So it's around the principles of courage and relentless discipline that have got my business to the point where it is today. So I started out in the fire brigade. I joined the airport fire service in Sydney in the age of 19 and joined the Metropolitan Fire Brigade in Melbourne at the age of 21. And my journey to become a firefighter in the fire brigade was around my passion for helping save lives and for making a difference in the world. During this time, I spent 8 years in the fire brigade, a lot of that time just around the corner here in Richmond, involved in high-angle rescue and technical rescue. And during that time, I went to a lot of great things. I had the privilege of being able to be involved in saving people's lives, but I also went to a lot of really nasty things and a lot of tragic accidents and incidents that occurred. During my days off and working 2 days, 2 nights and 4 days off, I started doing work which is what I really enjoyed, which was teaching people about emergency response and safety training. Everything from doing first aid and CPR training through to fire and emergency response training. Through doing this during my days off, I discovered what my passion was, and I started a business called Fire and Safety Australia. So starting that sort of as a side hustle to start with, over the next 3 years, between working day shifts and night shifts and my days off, that business became a 13 staff member, $1 million a year business in about 3 years' time. I then decided that my passion and the opportunity was to grow this business into something bigger. So I started this really from a position of wanting to help people, wanting to make sure that people went home from work safe and that people understood how to work safely and they knew what to do if there was an emergency in their workplace. Today, Fire and Safety Australia employs 150 people nationally, and we work with businesses like BHP, Chevron, Santos, large Australian and international oil and gas and mining companies. And our team is put into 2 areas. About half of our staff, about 80 people, are on shift as paramedics and emergency services officers at very large oil and gas mining and defence installations across the country 24/7. So it's a business that never sleeps. The other side of the business, we train about 50,000 people a year in emergency response and safety training, from clients like the MCG and Crown Casino or Bunnings through to remote oil and gas and mine sites and defence. So as you'll see from some of the pictures behind you, a lot of this work is remote and it's a 24/7 type of environment. I built this business from really wanting to improve emergency response and safety in the world. Our purpose is to forever change safety in the world, one experience at a time, which means every experience, every training course, every time we're there with people, we have the opportunity to change safety in that environment, which change safety in the world. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I learned going from, an idea, being on shift in the fire brigade through to sort of where the business is today. I don't work in the business anymore. I'm still the owner, my wife, Kelly, and I. I have a CEO and a leadership team that runs the businesses today. The way that I like to think about leadership and about running and growing a business is I love this Steve Jobs quote, which is, my job isn't to be easy on people, my job is to make people better. So the reason that I love that is not every decision that I made in growing my business has been popular. Not everything that I have said and wanted to achieve, everyone's gone along with and everyone said that's a great idea. So I'm going to talk a bit about the word courage throughout my session. And the reason for the word courage is sometimes it takes a bold leader to have the courage to follow through on the decision that they know is right, even when everyone else doesn't think that it's the right decision. So in building my business out, we went from 0 to $1 million in 3.5 years, and then 1 to 10 in the next 4 years, and then 10 to the mid-20s in the 3.5 years since. One of the things that's always worked for me is to have a strong and compelling vision of the future. So ever since starting from the early days, it's always been about where are we growing to? What does success look like for us in the future? And so one of the things that I've always wanted to make sure is that my team knew why we do what we do, the difference that we make in the world, and what the future success looks like. As the CEO or leader of the business, I think your job is to be able to go and show people where are we today and what does success look like in 3 or 5 years' time. And so the goals that I originally set in 2007, 2010, 2012, 2015, having the team that's able to see that success and to see that come off is what really drives people forward. I think that high-performing team members want to understand where the opportunities are in the future within a business and what the direction is in the future. So this is at every office, every location, to show what does our future success look like. And we've achieved about 70% of that over the last couple of years towards our 2020 goals. The other key point is that we have to have a strong culture. You can't have a high-performing business and a high-growth business unless you've got an engaged team of people that live the common core values. So we have 4 core values that we've built our business on: passion for safety, be memorable, commitment to our team and clients, and thirst for improvement. These are the behaviors, the value set about the people that we bring into the business and how we're able to grow the best team of people to have a successful team. So every single person, when I was running my business as the CEO, every person on first day, I would take them through the vision as the first thing that we did. I wanted to see the light in their eye about, is this something that excites them or is this something they think is hard work? I would say that every people decision in the business is based on our core values, and that my job was to get the right people into the business and the wrong people out, because we wanted to create a strong culture, an engaged culture, not a negative culture. So I highly recommend building a great culture through the use of core values. The next thing is we've got to have an effective strategy. So the way that I like to think about strategy is, how are we going to achieve success 1 year, 3 year, 5 years out? So I like to think it like you were the captain of an aircraft. If you took off from Melbourne to fly to New York and the captain came on and said, I'm not really sure where we're going, if we're going to make it, or what time we're going to get there, we're just going to fly west and see what happens, everyone's going to freak out. So instead, articulating a clear and well-defined strategy, talking to the team about this is where we're going, this is the way we're going to get there, here's our roadmap to success, is what's going to get that team aligned and engaged with the journey ahead. I love this quote down the bottom, which is a George Patton quote, which goes along the lines of, a good plan violently executed today is better than the perfect plan each week. And I see so many businesses that I do strategy work with that are planning and planning and planning and planning, whereas sometimes they'd be better off just to start, break a few things, and fix it along the way. So don't spend so much time planning, set some big goals, and then just start taking action towards it. Also, we have to look at along the journey, are we on track or off track? So one of the things that I find with businesses is they put together this killer strategy or killer plan, and they look at it in a year's time to go, here are all the things we failed at. Whereas if we were to treat this, and I take my role very seriously, we've got 150 odd people, that means I take a lot of pressure on the decisions that we make. We need to make sure that we're checking the gauges along the way to see whether or not we're flying on track or off track, just like a pilot would. I got my pilot's license when I was 16 years old, and one of the key things to learn when you're flying around visual flight rules is every 6 minutes, looking at the map, looking outside, are we on track or off track? If you sit down and read the paper for an hour, and you look up and you go, there's water all around me, there's probably some problems. So this allows you as a business to go, well, what are my key numbers that are going to determine if we're on track or off track with our goals each and every single week? So I coined the phrase relentless discipline. After training, and I'll talk about this a bit later, about 400 entrepreneurs of various business sizes, the main reason that I see people fail is that they do not have the discipline required to do what needs to be done day in, day out, week in, week out, quarter in, quarter out. They're like squirrels that will go and chase the next shiny object that they see in front of them, or change the business's direction because of something that they overheard, rather than have the relentless discipline to do what needs to be done day in, day out. So when I talk about relentless discipline, what I mean is, if you have to make 10 cold calls a day to go and speak to 10 prospective clients, then you do the 10 a day, every day, for as long as it takes. You don't do 5, you don't do 9, you do 10 forever until you achieve what that goal is. And so relentless discipline is the only thing that I've been able to use to make sure that we stay on track. What are the key numbers in the business? How do we make sure that we're continuing to grow, see our ideal customers with relentless discipline? So even to today, there's a couple of numbers that I still care about. Whilst revenue and profits, and that is great, one of the numbers that I'm obsessed about in my business is how many current clients or prospective clients did my team go and see each week. The reason that I put that as significantly as I do our profit or our revenue is that I know if we've got a team of 12 and they're in front of 120 existing or prospective clients each week, I know the business will grow. But when I see there's an off week or an off month where that comes down to 30%, they haven't got the discipline. They're not following through on the core activities that will drive the business forward. So relentless discipline, what do we have to do over the year? How do we break that down into a quarterly goal? How do we break that down into a weekly activity is what I've seen work in my business to grow us from 0 to where we are today. It's about aligning everyone onto one page. So I'm only interested in our business plan, which is based on one page. What are the key things that we need to deliver? So on the left-hand side of the plan is what are the annual goals that each head of each division needs to deliver to have a successful year over the year ahead. So starting a strategy session by saying, what does success look like 30th of June 2019? What do each of us have to deliver to have a successful year? The problem with most plans is that people do all of this work planning and none of the work doing. So the right-hand side of the page is, what do we have to do each and every week with relentless discipline to guarantee by the end of the year we're on track and we achieve our desired outcome? So if I want to see whether or not a business or my business is on track, it's not about what their goals are for the future. It's about what are the activities they're doing this week. They're going to drive us towards our quarterly targets. They're going to drive us towards our annual targets. Most businesses and most leaders have their head in the sand when it comes to thinking about, do I have the right people on my team? And so I've lost count of the number of people that I've fired along the journey that I've made, but it's certainly in the dozens. And the reason is, I learnt this question about 6 years ago. And this question is probably the most powerful question when it comes to determining, do I have the right team? Because unless we have a superstar team, it's pretty hard to get superstar results. So the question that any time a leader in my business would come to me and say, I have this problem with this team member is showing up late, this person is a cancer in terms of the culture of the business, they're not fitting in with our values and our attitudes, the best question to ask is, knowing what we know now, would we enthusiastically rehire this person? When I've done a lot of business growth training, I quite often teach between 30 and 70 people. Out of 30 and 70 business owners, between $250,000 a year in revenue and $50 million a year in revenue that would come to some of the courses that I would teach, out of 70 people, I might get 8 people put their hand up and say, yes, I would enthusiastically rehire all of my employees. So there are so many people that run businesses that have the wrong team members, they have the wrong culture, they're not hitting the performance requirements, yet they've got their head in the sand because they're going, they're not that bad. So I don't really want a not that bad team. I want a great team to achieve great results. So ask yourself this question about your team and think about, knowing what I know now, would I enthusiastically rehire all of my team? And if the answer is no, and you do nothing about it, you're the bottleneck holding the business back. You're the person that has to have the courage to make the difficult decisions to get the best possible team in place to achieve best success. Saying that, we can't grow a business without marketing and sales, without actually going and connecting what we do, why what we do is unique and different compared to our competitors, and connecting that with our ideal clients. So there's a couple of things that I've learned around marketing and sales that I thought I would share with you. The first one is about hiring a sales team. So I want you to look at, if you're a solo entrepreneur at the moment, or if you have a sales team of 50, the two biggest things that I've seen that determine the potential success of a sales team or a salesperson are attitude and activity. Attitude being, are we out there every day wanting to win? Are we taking the no's and the rejection and moving our way forward? Do I have the attitude which is, I need to go out, see prospective clients, see existing clients, and just get it done? Or do I have an attitude which is, gee, that's a lot of time out on the road, that's really difficult, the market's really tough, my competitors are undercutting us? So we have to have the attitude being that we want to win. Second of all is activity. So by activity, what are the activity drivers in your business that are going to grow it? So in my business, in selling professional services, it's face-to-face meetings with current or prospective clients. So I would set a number, let's say there was 12 meetings a week a person, and I would say my job is to help you, coach you, mentor you, that if you hit your 12, I guarantee that you'll hit your targets. But what I found most of the time is most people were soft, they didn't put the activity in, and they do 6 or 7 a week. After doing this for about 5 or 6 years and churning most of the sales team, I just said if they're not doing their 12 a week by 6 months, they're just going to leave the business. So I spend a lot of time working with sales team now and different businesses. What's the activity level? I mentored a young woman a few years ago, and she had a chocolate business. And she said, you know, I want to sell my business in a few years' time so that I can go and have kids and take a bit of a break. First question I said is, how many hours a week are you spending meeting with prospective clients? And it was 2. And I said, well, 2 is not going to get you to the growth that you want to get. This is about a $250,000 business. I said, I'll mentor you, I'll help you if it's at least 15 hours every single week. Not 1 week can you be less, 15 hours a week, every single week. In 2 years, it was a $750,000 a year business. 3 times the revenue because we worked out what was the activity that we needed to drive, had the relentless discipline to do it week after week after week, and triple the business. So what could you do within your business? What's the activity that you need to do? Because businesses are built not from behind a desk, but they're built from talking to clients, emailing clients, speaking to prospective clients. What do you need to do to push that activity forward? Because most businesses that I see, that's the area they're lacking. They've got a reasonable product, but they're just not doing enough activity. They're not out on the road enough, seeing enough people. You can do quotes and proposals and emails at night. You know, my business was not built in an 8-hour workday. It was built in going and seeing prospective clients, spending time with the team, and then that night doing what needs to be done. The next thing around marketing is, what do you do that's unique and different compared to your competitors? Because if you do the same thing as everybody else, you'll probably get the same results or less, or it will only be about price. So in my Fire and Safety Australia business, I came up with the 5 reasons to use Fire and Safety Australia, the first of which no one did in our industry, which is 100% money back guarantee. Which is if anyone isn't happy, even when they were happy, but they wanted to go and get their money back anyway, we still honoured it. It was a way to basically say, if we did that all the time, we would go under, we wouldn't exist. So this is something which is different. So how can you clearly articulate what you do that is unique and different that your customers need instead of your competitors? If you look at the businesses that have grown really quickly around the world, things like I caught the Uber here 20 minutes ago, Uber was unique and different compared to everyone else, which is why they rapidly scaled. So what do you do that's unique and different that your customers need that is going to make a difference? And being able to articulate to them, talk about it in your website and everything that you do. About 4.5 years ago, I started training for the Entrepreneurs Organisation. I taught the Accelerator program across Australia and New Zealand. And so that meant that I went to each capital city a day a quarter and probably trained about 500 different business owners between $250,000 in revenue and $50 million a year in revenue. So this gave me an amazing audience to actually see this success over about 4.5 years around what worked and what didn't work in growing and scaling a business. What I learned from that is that there are lots of people out there that have this huge vision and they have great ideas and a great strategy, but most of them just never bloody do it. They don't have the relentless discipline week after week, month after month to do the activity and do what needs to be done, and they don't have the courage to get through the adversity to be able to move the business forward. So after doing this and reflecting on my own business journey, I authored a book called Courage for Profit. And the reason that I called it Courage for Profit is business leaders need to have the courage required to get through the difficult times. Leading a business in successful times is easy. It's not that hard. But leading a business when going through cash flow dramas, people dramas, client dramas, and having the courage to push through, even though the inner voice might say this isn't going to work, that's what gets businesses through. So if I see businesses and entrepreneurs that continue to grow, continue to be successful, it's because they have the courage required to push through even when things might be falling down around them. So from that, when I wrote my book, I came up with a formula, which is every business has a different definition of business success. Some people want to make $50,000 a year. Some people want to be able to sell their business so they can have a family. Some want to make $1 billion business. But business success only comes from having a strong and compelling vision, showing and aligning the team what does success look like 3 or 5 years from now, having the courage to go and push through when things are difficult. You know, most of the time, courage is only associated with people like firefighters or in the military. But business leaders need courage to make the decision which is the right decision, even if it's not the popular decision. They need the relentless discipline to execute on those core activities week after week after week. So even when they're tired, even when they're sick, even when things aren't going well, they need to push through and continue executing. And the last one is thirst for improvement. Businesses and entrepreneurs that grow great businesses do so because they keep learning, they keep growing, and they keep looking to improve themselves. So that's what's worked for me, and that's what I saw after teaching 300, 400, 500 different businesses. A lot of them had a great idea, a great product. They even had a great strategy, but they just didn't go and get it done. And so getting it done, even if not perfect, is going to lead to success. So from this, I developed what I think is a good strategic growth framework in terms of how to grow a business. What's our strong and compelling vision for the future 3 to 5 years from now? What's our strategy, breaking down to 3 or so top goals for each area of the business? What's the KPI dashboard that we're going to measure each and every week with relentless discipline to determine if we're on track or off track? Do we understand and measure our team performance regularly? Have we got the right team? Would we enthusiastically rehire our team? Do we have established core values that define the culture for the business? Do we understand who our ideal client is and what we do that's unique and different? And do we have a clear profit and cash plan for the future? The last thing that I wanted to talk about was this definition of courage, because it's not always easy to get through the difficult times. So I thought that what I would do is share with you some things that happened to me in 2015. So my business, I had a team at that time of 100. So it was not a small team, and I was CEO of the business. And I had 4 things that, you know what, if they happen to you, I'm yet to meet someone that's had any of all 4 happen in their entire business career, let alone a year, this was basically the year of hell, which is some horrible, horrible things happen. So the first one was an employer resigned, who was a bit of a psycho, who became a stalker and did a whole lot of horrible things. I just landed the biggest ever contract in excess of $10 million and decided to call the client to say that our business was bankrupt. Email all of the staff to say that the business was going under, and a whole lot of really nasty things. So my view on that now is, well, if you're going to have 100 people, there's got to be 1% of psychos out there, so you can work your way through dealing with that. The second one is I had a call on a Friday night from one of my employees, and a lot of our work is at remote oil and gas and mine sites, saying the rope broke. And he attempted to hang himself, and we helped that person. He said to me multiple times, "You saved my life." We put him up for the next 3 months in a hotel. His family wouldn't look after him, so I went and flew up to the site to take him, got him to a point where he was cared for. And then 3 months later, there was alcohol and drug problems, and he decided to put in a work cover claim saying that the reason that he attempted suicide because he was overworked in the business. Obviously, that didn't work, and he lost the case. But this just gives you an example of you can do the best by people, commit to people, but not everything works. The third thing is I had one of our senior managers who'd been with the business for 2 years, who was an ex-army special. We employ a lot of ex-military personnel. He was in the special force in the military, and unfortunately he had a parachuting accident the day before he was meant to come back to work, and he passed away. So one of the toughest things that I've had to do is call up his 15 staff and to talk to them about unfortunately, this is what's happened as a result. And the last thing, which actually pales in comparison, even though it was huge financially, is I made a terrible critical business mistake that year that cost us $500,000. So the reason I talk about the word courage is because courage isn't when things are good. Courage comes from when you are tested. There is not one business owner that I know who has not gone through significant problems and challenges and had to push through. So that's why I like the word courage. So what are the decisions in your business that you're not making or that you're putting off? You know that you need to make it, you know it's the right decision, but you don't have the courage to get it done. So that's why I like to talk about the word courage. Last thing from me is just because a business is bigger doesn't mean that it gets easier. I used to think when we've got $1 million a year business, it'll get easier. We've got a $10 million a year business, it'll get easier. When we make $1 million in profit a year, that'll get easier, and it's all crap. Okay? It just is different, which means you can still have cash flow problems at a $20 million business, just like you can at a $200,000 a year business. So don't think that it will get easier tomorrow, because it doesn't. You will just get better if you keep learning and improving yourself. And secondly, if you keep using that thirst for improvement to grow yourself and grow your team, you're going to be able to work through it. So what I do now is work with different businesses. About 15 businesses I work with, generally mid-market businesses between $1 and $100 million, and help them with strategy and help them to grow. And the way that I finish any strategy session that I ever do, or any training session, is with a quote. And the quote is by this famous person that I think is terrific, and they have a great metaphor that we can adapt when it comes to business. Even to the point I was at a client meeting today after running a strategy session for them a month ago, and they actually made this into a glass plaque, and they gave it to me. And that's a Yoda quote, which is, "Do or do not, there is no try." So when it comes to growing a business, when it comes to doing the things that need to be done, don't try and do it. Don't talk about doing it next week. Just go out there and do it, and know that your business will be better off as a result of it. I hope that everyone got something out of this that was interesting to you, and I'm happy to answer any questions later on when we do the Q&A session. Thank you for having me.